It had been over 5 years since my wife of 15 years, Olivia Mae Turner, who was once a manager at Pacific Trust Bank, abruptly asked for a divorce. She told me that she no longer had feelings for me and insisted there was no other person involved. She simply claimed we had drifted apart. I had my suspicions, but never found concrete evidence. Shortly after, I overheard her discussing new life plans over the phone. We had agreed on joint custody of our daughters, who were then 14 and 12. Both girls chose to stay with her after private discussions. Today, as I browsed through the news, I was shocked to come across an article featuring Olivia Mae Collins, now a regional director attending a high society fundraiser in Miami with her new husband, Jonathan Collins, a well-known entrepreneur. Their daughters, Emily and Chloe Collins, now 19 and 17, were also mentioned. It was unmistakably Olivia. She had achieved the status and recognition she had always sought. The article highlighted her rise in social prominence. Jonathan, her husband, was once a casual acquaintance of mine from when Olivia and he worked together at Pacific Trust Bank. Although Emily and Chloe were my daughters, they now had a different last name. My immediate reaction was to call my assistant, Laura Mills, to confirm what I had seen. Laura, who coincidentally was distantly related to Olivia, was unavailable that day. On the day our divorce was to be finalized, Olivia didn't appear in court. Worried, I asked my lawyer to look into it. The judge had required both of us to testify about the agreement we had reached. Olivia's lawyer then revealed she had relocated out of state without my consent. No, I replied when asked if I had approved the move with our children. When everything started to unravel. Judge Robert Harris's demeanor changed instantly upon learning the situation. He asked, "Could you step outside and try contacting them?" I left the courtroom and tried to call them. To my dismay, all the phone numbers were disconnected. Checking their social media profiles on my phone, I found that I had been unfriended and blocked. Returning to the courtroom, I informed my lawyer of what I had discovered, and he conveyed the information to the judge. The judge quickly issued an arrest warrant for Olivia, charging her with parental kidnapping. He suspended the divorce proceedings until she could be brought to court. Olivia's lawyer was visibly upset, attempting to appeal to the judge's sense of fairness. "It's not a critical issue," the lawyer argued. "Mr. Turner can confirm their agreement." The judge responded, "He just testified that he didn't agree to the children being taken out of the state." The lawyer countered, "That might not be true. He could be fabricating this, which is why she needs to be present," the judge stressed, especially with the well-being of both daughters at stake. During the police investigation, I found out that Olivia's family had claimed she requested a transfer because of alleged long-term physical and emotional mistreatment of our daughters. Even her former colleagues at Pacific Trust Bank seemed willing to support these allegations, despite a lack of evidence. They took Olivia's word for it, likely influenced by her new position. "Why does it matter? He's just the father," they reasoned. When our extended family and social services privately interviewed the girls, they confirmed that no such allegations had ever been made. Nevertheless, rumors spread throughout our small town, fueled by Olivia's relatives. Over the past 5 years, the judge and I had bonded over our shared interest in gardening, forming a close friendship. That evening after dinner, I visited him and his wife. Not surprised by my visit, I brought the newspaper with me for a specific reason. "There is something you need to see," I said seriously, as I opened the paper to the article. "My goodness," the judge muttered. "Helen, can you bring me my phone? David, could you give me a moment?" "Robert, the photo below is of my 2 daughters," I said. The judge's face went pale. "Good heavens, they've been in plain sight this whole time." I stepped outside to sit on their porch. Helen joined me, bringing a couple of drinks. "He is livid. I've never seen him this upset. He is on the phone with the FBI." "What did you show him?" Helen asked. "A picture in today's paper of my missing wife and her new husband. It's just the first clue in 5 years that she's alive," I replied. The second photo on the page showed my daughters, now with different last names. "Oh, this is a disaster. That's why he called the FBI. Moving across state lines with a kidnapping charge is a federal crime," Helen said. Why didn't a Pacific Trust Bank help locate her? They cited a legal ruling from a federal appeals court arguing it was a family matter and they weren't obligated to comply with the court order, I explained. I headed home, overwhelmed with emotions. Tell him he can reach me at my office in the morning, I told the judge. It was a long, stressful night for me. I wondered if there had been more to their relationship than friendship back then. She had been hired as a financial loans officer in his department after we married. While I was in the midst of launching my consulting firm, I couldn't help but dwell on my daughter's new last names. Were they truly mine, or had everything been a lie? I reminded myself to take things slowly. Jessica, my eldest, was already born when Olivia joined the bank, so at least I had some certainty there. The next morning, I found myself worrying about my assistant Laura, who had grown increasingly distant from her cousin Olivia over the past 5 years. Laura had always believed in me, standing by my side through thick and thin, despite her family ties. To me, Laura was an incredible woman, with her auburn hair, gentle smile, and warm heart. She was a treasure any decent man would be lucky to cherish. Yet, I admired her from afar, never daring to drag her into the chaos of my life. Work was my sanctuary that day, helping me to keep my mind off things. Near the end of the day, Laura knocked and entered my office. "David, 2 gentlemen from the FBI are here to see you." "Should I let them in?" Laura asked. "Absolutely. I have been expecting them," I replied, standing up. As the agents entered, I greeted them. "How can I assist you?" "I am Agent Sam Holmes, and this is Agent Doug Brown," one of them introduced. "We are here to gather some background on your case." I explained the history between Olivia, her current husband, and myself, and expressed my concerns about the girl's name changes. I suggested DNA tests to clear up any doubts and mentioned Judge Robert Harris halting the divorce proceedings due to Olivia's failure to appear and the parental kidnapping charges. "You'll need to check if she filed for divorce in Florida and whether her current marriage is legal," I advised. "So the divorce was never finalized by the judge?" Doug clarified. "That is correct," I confirmed. "The records show she ignored the judge's order to appear." "Did you authorize her to leave the state with your children?" Sam inquired. "No," I said, recalling the situation. "Her lawyer informed us she moved out of state. I tried contacting them, but all their numbers were disconnected, and I was blocked on social media. She moved out of state before finalizing the divorce and remarried shortly after," Doug noted. "It is clear this was intentional," Sam concluded. "That contradicts what she stated in her Miami interview today." "When did you last have contact?" Doug asked. 2 weekends before our final court hearing, when they removed their belongings," I recounted. "I haven't received any legal notices or updates since." "It seems I am still legally married," I remarked. "We can pursue charges for falsifying adoption papers," Sam suggested. "I asked about adoption papers but received no response," I noted. "Laura, please draft a letter confirming my signature for the FBI. Do you still reside at 54,321 Elm Street?" Sam inquired. "No, I sold it under court order after a series of incidents. I now live out of town by Maple Lake for safety reasons," I explained. After the agents left, I filled Laura in on the situation. She was visibly shocked by the revelations about her distant cousin and showed a mix of concern and curiosity. But there were still too many unanswered questions. "Laura, tonight when I leave, I'm turning off my cell phone. If my situation troubles you, use your best judgment. If there is an emergency, call my house phone," I told her. Laura had developed a deep animosity toward Olivia for destroying my reputation and relationships, causing me to lose family and friends. Watching this unfold had left Laura questioning how much one person could endure before the truth came to light. She had seen me suffer in silence for years, throwing myself into work to build up my client base threefold. Laura and I had met at a family gathering when I was 19, and she was just 14. Olivia's engagement had overshadowed everything at that event, and Laura had foreseen the relationship's downfall. While I had always prioritized family, Olivia craved attention and status. Laura had confided in me after her husband's passing, finding comfort in my support. Over time, she realized I was the person she wanted to spend her life with. However, my haunted past consumed me daily. Olivia's sudden disappearance with our daughters had sparked malicious rumors, some even accusing me of serious wrongdoing. During a dinner at the Lakeside Grill, Olivia's father, Robert, approached me unexpectedly. He shared that Olivia had admitted I never harmed our daughters and that she had fabricated accusations to justify leaving. I demanded signed statements from relatives to validate their sincerity, dismissing Robert coldly. "Many in this town think I am guilty of something I never did," I asserted. Robert left, and I wondered if anyone believed that a brief conversation could erase 5 years of pain and lies. Moments later, the waitress who had served me approached. "Mr. Turner, I went to school with your daughters. From what I have heard, they had no idea what was going on. That Friday before they disappeared, I saw the man who just left working with others from your wife's family as they packed up," the waitress said. "I thought you should know. Thank you for being honest." "I wasn't aware of that," I replied. "I have grown accustomed to being lied to all these years, keeping mostly to myself to avoid the gossip and lies spread about me." As she returned to work, I left a generous tip. Fishing at Maple Lake that weekend provided some much-needed solace, enjoying my favorite meal of freshly caught trout each night. Back at work on Monday, I made coffee as Laura arrived unusually early, appearing more upbeat than usual after pouring herself a cup. Laura joined me, her presence a soothing balm to the chaos that had become my life. Reflecting on the past, Olivia and I married right after her high school graduation, with Jessica being born not long after. At the time, I was renovating houses while she worked her way up in banking. "I heard what you told Robert," Laura mentioned, referring to Olivia's father. "Everyone did. My phone didn't stop ringing all weekend. Can you blame them after what the family did?" I responded. "Why the notarized statements? For defamation," I explained. "To clear my name and regain some control?" "Are you suing her?" Laura asked, clearly concerned. "Yes. To clear my name and restrict their access to funds," I replied. "It'll be an interesting week if all those calls turn into statements." "Most people are decent, but they've been misled," Laura said. "Let's see if guilt motivates them," I said, chuckling. "Some of us single ladies enjoy early morning fishing," she teased, making me laugh. As I left work, I thanked Laura for being a bright spot in a dark time. She had been my anchor through these turbulent years. By Thursday lunch, we had 24 notarized statements proving Olivia had fabricated stories about me abusing our daughters to justify her disappearance. She had manipulated her family into aiding her, showing no remorse. Laura had uncovered Olivia's current address and employment details. "Your lawyer's appointment is at 2. Serve Olivia before filing charges and freezing their assets," she instructed. "Laura, you are thorough. If you ever meet Olivia, God help her," I thought, admiring her meticulousness. I returned to the office at 4:30, bringing a bottle of champagne and glasses. The lawyer Laura recommended was now handling my case, and I handed over all the evidence: court records, audio recordings, the judge's rulings, signed affidavits, and a warrant for Olivia's arrest. I also included a news article detailing her new life and our past relationship. The lawyer noted that Pacific Trust Bank had been complicit in covering up her actions. "We should sue them too, for aiding in the destruction of your reputation," she suggested. "As long as it covers both cases, I am on board," I agreed. "We Americans will sue over anything," she joked, and we shared a laugh. Laura and I toasted with champagne, but our celebration was interrupted by a call from Judge Harris. "Hello, Robert. How are things?" I answered. "The FBI is moving forward with a grand jury against Olivia and Jonathan next Wednesday," he informed me. "They'll be requesting custody of Jessica and DNA tests for all involved." "Thanks, Robert." "About the divorce," I started. "I'll grant it once she's in court, even if it is just via video," Robert assured me. "Can he send her to jail?" Laura asked, concerned. "The FBI will handle the kidnapping charges, but the judge can rule on contempt of court," I explained. "It's a waiting game now." "Yeah, 5 years and counting," I nodded. "A few more weeks, one to change much." The next week flew by. On Thursday morning, my lawyer confirmed that the papers were served and assets were frozen. That afternoon, FBI agent Doug called to set up DNA tests. While fishing on Saturday morning, Laura called with news about Olivia S. FBI detention. Eager for more details, I headed to the office to catch up. The FBI had detained Olivia and Jonathan for kidnapping, defined under federal law as using force or deceit to hold someone against their will for personal gain. Olivia faced multiple charges, including forgery to hide the children with Jonathan Collins, her new husband, in Florida. They had falsified adoption papers while working together at Pacific Trust Bank. The newspaper reported that I had attempted to locate my wife through the bank, but was blocked by a court order preventing disclosure. Jonathan, a senior executive at the bank, had used his position to obstruct my efforts. I had filed a slander suit against Olivia Collins for falsely accusing me of abuse, which had led to ongoing police investigations. Despite the public perception, I had become isolated. "We have 2 open cases of attempted felonies," said a police officer. Many believed he had done something terrible and was getting away with it. The article laid out the facts, and the local paper confirmed its accuracy. The reporter sympathized, calling the last 5 years a living nightmare. My name partly cleared, I thought, planning to sell my business and leave. I gathered evidence for my case. Meanwhile, Jessica Collins was shocked by her parents' arrest for kidnapping. Learning her real parents were not divorced, she was stunned that her mother faced charges of parental kidnapping and her stepfather with aiding and abetting. Jessica drove back to the old town, reading a damning article about her parents. As she reflected on her mother's actions, Jessica grappled with the many unanswered questions. Parked outside her childhood home, she saw police approaching, escalating the already tense situation. "Who are you? Why are you watching this place?" the taller officer demanded. "I am Jessica Collins. I was waiting for the sheriff's department to leave so I could talk to my father," Jessica explained. "And your father's name?" the officer questioned. "David Turner," she replied. "Oh, wow," the officer reacted in surprise. "Tom, go tell Joanne and Jed to get some coffee brewing. This changes things." "Miss Collins, I am Detective Joel Sanders. I know your father well." "What brought you back here after all this time?" he asked. "Partly what happened last night in the newspaper article." "I have a copy in the car. Should I get it?" Jessica offered. "Please do. It will help me understand what you know," Joel agreed. After introductions and coffee, Detective Sanders read the article aloud. Everyone seemed shocked, except him. "You believed my father, didn't you, Detective?" Jessica asked. "I was one of the few, but yes. From the time rumors spread by your mother's family, it was too late. He was stalked, his house vandalized, and he was attacked. We almost lost him," Joel shared, the weight of the past hanging heavy in the room. "He was blamed for your disappearance." "Your father has been treated as an outcast," Joel explained. "A lot of folks around here have their own sense of justice, and your dad's situation got so bad that it forced him to leave," Jessica remarked. "Where does he live now?" "He is secluded on a 5-acre estate at Cedar Lake, surrounded by electric fencing and a secure gate. For the past 2 years, no one has seen him around town outside of his work," Tom explained. "How can I reach him?" Jessica wondered aloud. "I think I can help," Tom replied, checking some records. "Let me see if his business has an emergency contact. Give me a moment." Tom returned shortly with an address written on a slip of paper. "Do you know Laura Mills?" Tom asked Jessica. "She is a distant cousin on my mom's side, I think." "Why do you ask?" Jessica inquired. "She is listed as the only person who can reach him 24/7 in case of emergencies. She is very protective of your father," Tom explained. "She is actually on her way to his office right now to meet you." He handed Jessica the address, and after expressing her thanks, she headed out. Meanwhile, Laura Mills seemed to hold a deep resentment toward Jessica's mother. Joel mused aloud, what kind of woman could harbor such bitterness to do what Olivia did to David? Jessica began recounting her story. "Miranda and I were abruptly woken by our mother at 4:00 a.m. that Saturday morning, still groggy and disoriented. She packed some of our clothes into the car and told us we were going on a surprise trip to New York for a week," Jessica recalled. "That was unexpected for us," she added. "So you had no clue what was really happening?" Laura asked, leaning in. Some family members now claim they knew about Jonathan and my mother's online relationship, but thought it was just platonic. I had caught my mom chatting with Jonathan, but had no idea they had worked together previously. She told me they met at a regional banking conference and became friends, Jessica replied. It wasn't tea until about 30 minutes into the drive that I realized we didn't have our phones. I confronted her, and she said she had sole custody of us granted by the courts, and we were moving to New York because of her sudden promotion and transfer. At the time, I believed her, but now I see it was all fabricated. Laura listened intently, piecing together the truth from Jessica's story, along with recent revelations from others who had finally come forward about what Olivia's children were unaware of. I also asked about our laptops. My mother said the phones were canceled due to the move, and she needed to pay off the balance. She claimed the movers would pack and ship our laptops along with the furniture. We didn't realize they would never arrive, Jessica continued. We drove for nearly 20 hours over 2 days. What happened when you reached New York? Laura asked, her voice softening. Mom had Miranda pull out her new phone, which had a New York number we didn't know about. She then had my sister open Google Maps to guide us to Jonathan Collins' home about 2 hours later. He had apparently orchestrated her promotion to get closer to us. Meanwhile, our family back home was instructed to dispose of everything except for family photos, which were later mailed to us, Jessica explained. While unpacking, my sister and I found completed adoption papers. Jonathan later told us that our parents agreed to this because he and Mom were getting married that night. Mom revealed that Jonathan was our biological father and urged us to give him a chance. Over time, we were made to believe that Dad had abandoned us after learning the truth about Jonathan. Jessica, I believe you because I've already heard bits and pieces of this from the family. Until now, the only solid information we had was that the school district had provided Olivia with your records so you could enroll in a new school once settled. Now that Olivia has been found, the truth is starting to come out. Just so you know, I've been recording our conversation. After I send it to the FBI and your father, let us grab an early dinner at the Lakeside Grill, Laura suggested. While I do that, take a look at these notarized statements. Consider this if she lied to you about your father, David Turner. Could she also be lying about Jonathan Collins? Laura briefly left the room to let Jessica digest everything before forwarding their conversation. Jessica was starting to grasp the extent of her mother's deceit. Laura sent the recording first to David, then to his civil lawyer, due to its potentially damaging nature, and finally to the FBI. Throughout, she kept a watchful eye on Jessica, who made no attempts to contact anyone. Just before returning, David texted her, "I'll be waiting for your arrival. Thank you." She responded, "I've left her alone for about half an hour to read some of the statements we received from the family. She hasn't tried to contact anyone." With that, Laura returned to Jessica, ready to face whatever came next. "Why did my mother tell everyone that my father had been physically abusing us for years?" Jessica asked, her voice tinged with disbelief and sadness. Laura sighed deeply before responding, "Your mother, Olivia, knew the family never fully accepted your father, David. She used those lies to justify her abrupt disappearance and the move across the country. Olivia also anticipated that David would try to find you, and he did. He even took Pacific Trust Bank to court to uncover her location, winning initially but losing on appeal. We only discovered your mother's remarriage and your new name change recently, when your photo appeared in a local newspaper. That's when your father took legal action," Laura continued. "That day, your mother attempted to reconnect with the family, likely trying to address her growing issues. For over 5 years, David has been vilified because of your mother's actions. There were moments we feared he might not make it through." "How is my dad really?" Jessica asked, her voice filled with concern. "He's become a recluse and has lost a lot of weight. The constant stress has turned most of his hair white. He has had to shut down his social media because of harassment and threats. He has learned to be cautious about whom he trusts. David used to be a social butterfly, but now he is more reserved. Even his family has distanced themselves. Divorce is challenging, but what he faced was far worse. The local gossip still paints him as a villain," Laura explained. Does Dad have anyone special in his life now? Jessica inquired, a hint of hope in her voice. Laura shook her head. Given the reputation Olivia smeared him with, it has been tough. For the past 5 years, he has been trying to clear his name from an unprovable accusation. He had to fight against a tide of misinformation. Jessica paused, processing this, then spoke softly. Every time he tried to defend himself, it seemed to make things worse. People had already decided he was guilty. Our sudden disappearance only added fuel to the fire, making my mother's lies seem credible. Olivia and Jonathan orchestrated everything, and Dad bore the brunt of it. There were times I feared he might not survive the ordeal, Laura admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. Let's get something to eat, Laura suggested, trying to lighten the mood. Jessica felt a surge of gratitude towards Laura. She had stood by her father through the worst of times. As they walked toward the restaurant, Jessica stopped and turned to Laura. Thank you, she said earnestly. For what? Laura asked, genuinely surprised. For standing by my dad and loving him when no one else would, Jessica replied, her voice thick with emotion. The sincerity of Jessica's words brought Laura to tears. Jessica hugged her tightly, offering comfort. Meanwhile, at the Lakeside Inn, I sat nervously in my car waiting for them to arrive. My mind raced with the conversation I had overheard between Laura and Jessica. I believed it, yet it felt surreal. When I saw them pull into the parking lot, my hands trembled so much I could barely light a cigarette. Jessica had grown into a stunning young woman. She looked so much like my mother, which brought a pang of sadness as my family had shunned me shortly after Olivia took the girls. After finishing my cigarette, I steeled myself for one of the most challenging moments of my life. The hostess recognized me immediately and said, "Jessica S. here." I seated her and her friend at the back. "Are you here to join them?" I nodded, and she led me to their table. As we approached, Laura saw me and smiled. I sat down beside her, gripping her hand tightly. For the first time in over 5 years, I looked into my daughter's bright blue eyes. Tears began to flow from both of us, and we hugged tightly. The waitress brought a bottle of wine, poured our glasses, and quietly left us to our reunion. Jessica was struck by how much I had changed. I had lost significant weight and looked older, with my hair now completely silver. As we sat, Jessica broke the ice. "Dad, you've changed a lot." "I've had a lot of time to think and reflect," I responded. "Things have been tough, but I am still here." After our initial emotional exchange, we ordered dinner. Jessica was surprised to see me order a vegetarian platter with a salad bar, quite different from my old meat and potatoes diet. As Laura and I refilled our plates, Jessica took the opportunity to speak with me privately. "Dad, Laura really cares about you." "Probably more than anyone else," Jessica confided. "She grilled me about everything until she was convinced I was telling the truth. She wasn't going to let me hurt you again, and I did. I should have looked for the truth myself, but I didn't. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that." "Jessica, it's not your fault. For the past 5 years, I've been living a nightmare. People around here were convinced I had done something terrible and gotten away with it. If any evidence had turned up, I might have ended up in jail. That's why, 3 years ago, after being hospitalized twice due to attacks, I changed my will to leave everything to you. Laura found me at my lowest point," I explained, feeling the weight of those years lift slightly, "and pulled me back from the brink," I finished, as Laura returned and saw Jessica in tears. Concerned, she asked what had upset her. "Not much," I replied. "Just that 3 years ago, while I was in the hospital, I decided to change my will to leave everything to Jessica. I told her it was her love that saved me." Soon, both women were crying. After lunch, we returned the rental car and headed to my secluded home by Cedar Lake. They admired the view and the layout of the house. I offered to carry Jessica's luggage, but she declined, wanting to give Laura and me some privacy. "Why didn't you tell me sooner how you felt?" Laura asked, her voice soft and searching. "I felt trapped by my past," I admitted. "I never knew what might happen next. Olivia and Jonathan used that uncertainty against me. Now that I am free from their accusations, I can finally offer you a future." Laura squeezed my hand affectionately. I guess I'll be putting my place up for sale because I won to let you sell this beautiful home, she teased. Later, Jessica caught us kissing, which made her feel a bit guilty. We spent the next hour catching up on her life. She was working in a stagnant job in finance and pursuing her Master's degree online. She wasn't dating anyone seriously. "Why don't you join us here?" I offered. "We could use your fresh perspective, and it would be great to have you close. You can start at a junior level and work your way up." "Are you serious?" Jessica asked, disbelief and hope mingling in her voice. "Yes, absolutely," Laura replied, smiling widely. "We can start you off with a $50,000 annual salary." "Wow, I guess I'll need to find a place to live," Jessica said, touched by the offer. "Don't rush, there is plenty of room here," I reassured her. "But I expect you to help out with chores, just like old times." Jessica's eyes welled up with tears. "Dad, you've always been such a big part of my life," she said emotionally. "I'll fly out tomorrow to pack." "If I can arrange a flight, I should be back by Wednesday," Jessica planned aloud. As we exchanged phone numbers, Jessica received a text from Miranda, which she showed me finally got my cell back. "FBI is holding me until DNA proves if Jonathan Collins is my dad. They found out the adoption papers were forged." Jessica replied, "With Dad now, flying back tomorrow to pack, joining his firm. His number saved as Sir." Miranda responded, "Bring mine and my laptop. Lawyers can handle the rest. See if you can grab today's national paper, it explains a lot." Jessica texted back, "Call me when you can." Laura found me on the patio and asked, "How are you feeling?" Emotionally overwhelmed, I admitted, pulling her into a hug. "How about I take Jessica with me to get some of my clothes?" Laura suggested. "That'll give you some time to process everything." I sent her the code for the gate's electronic lock via her phone and handed her the house keys to copy, suggesting we might need 4. They were gone for about 2 hours. I spent most of that time in tears, finally releasing the pain I had carried for so long. When they returned, we were all smiling. I was on the patio, firing up the grill for steaks with salad ready and potatoes baking. I watched them chat as they brought in various items over several trips now spread across the master bed. During a very late dinner, Jessica mentioned she would fly out at 8:00 a.m. Sunday and Laura and I would move more of her things tomorrow. It warmed my heart to see the girls enjoy their meal. Afterward, over coffee, my phone rang. Only the FBI had this number besides us. "Hello, Mr. Turner. It's Agent Doug Brown. Miranda's DNA test confirms you are her father. She wants to come home, landing in Springfield at 7:30 on Monday," Doug informed me. "That's great news. Laura and I will be there to meet her," I replied, relief flooding over me. "Perfect. Jessica's on her way too." "Miranda saw the article online," Doug added. "By the way, Jonathan Collins was devastated. Olivia had misled him about Miranda. It doesn't change his legal situation, though," I noted. "One more thing. What are my daughter's legal names now?" "Their legal surname is Turner. You'll receive the court ruling Monday to change their IDs," Doug assured me before ending the call. Overwhelmed, tears flowed, and I struggled to speak. Laura and Jessica were concerned but quickly composed themselves as I shared the good news. "Miranda is arriving at the airport at 7:30 on Monday morning. She's mine," I said, confirming her status. When they broke the news to Jonathan Collins, he was devastated. Olivia had him convinced she was his. "I knew it," Laura said. "Did my mother ever tell anyone the truth?" Jessica asked, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "I've got some news. You need to change your last name back to Turner because the federal court ruled your adoption invalid," I explained. My daughter ran into my arms, crying, "Collins never felt right." We saw Jessica off as she headed back to New York to retrieve her belongings. Then Laura and I went to meet her 2 brothers and their wives in Greenville. They were going to help move the furniture Jessica wanted out of her place. Since only 2 of the bedrooms were furnished, we had plenty of space to accommodate her things. The whole story was printed in the Sunday edition of the local newspaper. We met Laura's family at Hickory House for breakfast. They all noticed the happiness glowing on Laura's face. Her sisters-in-law joked that with Laura's cooking, I'd soon have some meat back on my bones. The restaurant owner, an old friend, said, "Congrats, David. This meal on us." We finished everything in one long, exhausting day, but it felt like a new beginning. I suspected Laura's sisters-in-law were envious of her new home. Laura and I offered to treat them and their families to dinner, but they declined, suggesting they'd come over when we hosted our first housewarming party. With everyone back home, we headed to the airport at 7:15 in the morning, anticipating the connecting flight might arrive early. Laura had informed everyone at work that neither of us would be in today, and they responded, "We figured as much when we read the Sunday paper." As I watched Miranda descend the stairs from the small plane, I was struck by how much she had changed. The last time I saw her, she was a teenage girl with pigtails. Now, she was a poised young woman. As soon as she spotted me, she broke into a run, the sliding doors opening just in time to let her through. "Dad!" she cried, leaping into my arms. We both let our emotions flow, oblivious to the cameras capturing the moment. I overheard Laura telling a local news reporter that David Turner and his youngest daughter. Half the town thought he had something to do with her disappearance, but it turns out they were kidnapped over 5 years ago. The FBI currently has their mother and her accomplice in custody. We separated and turned to face the reporter. Miranda stepped forward confidently. "I am Miranda Turner, and this is my father, David Turner. 5 years ago, with the help of my mother's family, we were kidnapped. They spread lies that my father had abused us, which is completely untrue. While there may be issues within my mother's extended family, our dad never harmed us. He's the most honest person I know. Anyone who tries to attack him now will have to go through my sister and me. We are a family and we stand together. When our mother divorced our father, she told us he was just getting what he deserved," Miranda continued. "None of us deserved what she did to us. He is not just my dad, he is a man of integrity." I introduced Miranda to Laura, who hugged her warmly. Miranda said, "Amanda and I talked yesterday about everything we've learned. It turns out our mother misled Ronald just as much as she did our dad. In her desperate need for attention, she nearly destroyed 5 lives. We know you and Dad are planning to get married, so as far as Amanda and I are concerned, we want to focus on moving forward and leave the past behind." Laura, with tears in her eyes, said, "Miranda, you couldn't have put it better. I agree. And if you promise to be one of my bridesmaids, we'll make it a celebration to remember. Let's grab some breakfast," I suggested. "Then we'll get you some clothes at the department store." "Can we go to Denny's?" Miranda asked. "Are they still open?" "No, but Huddle House is the closest thing for breakfast food," I replied. "Sounds good," she agreed, and I was surprised by how much my youngest could eat. I joked that it might be cheaper to send her to a boarding school, but truthfully, I was overjoyed to have her back in my life. It felt like a home again, not just a house. While shopping at the store, I intentionally wandered off, feeling out of place among discussions of bra sizes and other personal items. By the time Laura and Miranda noticed I was missing, I was almost back. "Where did you go?" Laura asked, amused. "I needed a break," I laughed. "There's just something about shopping for women's clothes that makes me feel lost." I spent the next hour sitting and watching as Miranda tried on outfits, asking for my opinion. In my eyes, she looked great in everything. After spending about $300, we left with 2 bags full of clothes. Back at the house, Laura took Miranda upstairs to show her the now furnished bedrooms. Miranda was thrilled to choose the room with the best view, complete with Laura's master bedroom furniture. We relaxed on the patio before the day's heat set in. The ladies enjoyed iced tea while I sipped a cold beer. Then, with a playful smile, I pulled a ring box from my pocket, got down on one knee, and proposed to Laura. "Since I haven't officially asked you," I said, opening the box to reveal a beautiful ring, "will you marry me once my divorce is final?" Laura's eyes sparkled with tears of joy as she said, "Yes." Miranda caught the whole moment on video and immediately sent it to Amanda, texting, "She said yes, and it fits perfectly." About half an hour later, Laura received an unexpected call. Both Miranda and I watched her as she teared up, passing the phone to me. As soon as the voice on the other end said, "Congrats, Dad," I realized it was Amanda. "Are you on the road yet?" I asked. "I left at 4 yesterday. I've been driving almost nonstop since then," Amanda explained. There's less traffic at night and fewer cops on the highway. My car cruises well at just over 100. Let Miranda know I am on my way. I got everything you asked for, Amanda confirmed, sounding exhausted. How much farther do you have to go, I asked. What time is it there, she inquired. It's about 2 p.m., I replied. I need directions, she said. I just pulled off onto the off-ramp at Oak Ridge. I quickly texted her the directions, feeling a mix of pride and concern. She must have driven nearly 24 hours straight. As Amanda's car approached the driveway, the girls were already at the door, eagerly waiting. Amanda looked weary, but otherwise fine. Seeing all three of my daughters together hit me hard, emotions welling up inside. The first thing Amanda did upon arriving was check out Laura's engagement ring. Just then, the house phone rang. I rushed to answer it. David, we've been swamped today, Chris said. Some of the clients we lost due to the rumors are coming back, and we have a lot of new ones setting up appointments. Many are from out of state. If this continues, we'll need to hire more staff. That's great news, I said. My daughter Amanda starts as a junior associate next week. She is green but working towards her Master's in business administration. Can I have her on my team? Chris asked. It'll be long hours, but she'll learn the ropes the hard way. I agreed. Chris was a go-getter I had hired right out of college. He had quickly learned that business theory often doesn't hold up in the real world, and he made sure his team learned the same way. His approach was straightforward. If you saw someone making a mistake, you stopped them and explained why it was wrong. The only bad question was the one you didn't ask. Chris, Laura and I will be taking the rest of the week off, I informed him. We have a lot to sort out with our engagement and the girls coming home. Plus, we need to handle some legal issues and enroll Miranda in school. Engaged, huh? Congratulations. Oh, that reminds me, we got a letter from the FBI. Can you swing by and pick it up at 5, Chris said. Absolutely. Thanks for the reminder, I said before hanging up. At 4:30, the four of us headed into town. We decided to celebrate our first official meal as a reunited family at the Lobster Shack, a favorite spot my daughters had picked. I pulled up in front of our office and asked Amanda if she wanted to see where she'd be working. She said yes, so we all went in. As we entered, the receptionist stood up and led us to the conference room where a large cake and a banner that read, "Congratulations, Amanda," awaited us. Amanda met her new boss, and everyone got to know my new family. It was touching to hear my daughters already calling Laura Mom. We arrived at the restaurant around 6:30, just in time for their annual all-you-can-eat shrimp event. My daughters lost count of how much they ate. I couldn't believe I now enjoyed eating raw lemons, a habit I had picked up over the years. Together, my daughters and I read the court ruling. The first point highlighted that the document used for their adoption could easily be found online, requiring no lawyer. The second point noted that handwriting experts had determined my signature had been traced, causing breaks in the ink flow inconsistent with my natural signature. The third point was that I had never signed my full middle name. The fourth giveaway was the recorded date of my supposed signature, which was after Olivia and the girls had left the state. The second page of the court ruling declared that Amanda and Miranda Peterson were never their legal names. They had always been Amanda Turner and Miranda Turner. All legal documents were to be updated accordingly. We spent the week resolving legal issues, starting with the Social Security Office, then the State Attorney's Office to restore their birth certificates, and finally to the Motor Vehicle Department for new driver licenses. I particularly enjoyed registering Miranda in 11th grade with the same school principal who had been rude to me 5 years ago. The last task on Thursday was to get them new cell phones. On Friday, Amanda and Miranda followed Laura and me to the Ford dealership in Greenville. Laura and I decided to trade in our old cars for new ones. The girls each got a brand new lease to own 2024 Ford Escape through my company. Once home, I wrote Amanda a check for the trade in value to be applied against our down payment. My divorce lawyer called, notifying us of a court hearing scheduled for Monday at 1 p.m. For the first time in 5 years, we would face Olivia in court. I asked Laura if she wanted to come, and she said absolutely. We all sat before Judge Robert Harris, watching Olivia Lynn Collins on a large monitor. Without her usual glamour, She looked disheveled in her orange jumpsuit. The judge asked her lawyer about the contempt charge. She didn't understand she had to be in court that day, her lawyer claimed. Did you remind her repeatedly during the settlement process? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. Are you so incompetent that you believe the defendant might be telling the truth? No, Your Honor. How does your client plead? The judge asked. No contest, Your Honor, the lawyer replied. I sentence her to 5 years to be served after any federal time, the judge said coldly. Your Honor, the lawyer protested, isn't that extreme? Not in my eyes, but she can appeal. As for the divorce, it's granted in favor of Mr. Turner. All remaining assets are his. She forfeited any rights to them the day she left the state with her minor daughters. The judge turned to my lawyer and said, draw up the divorce decree and include a waiver for the required waiting period. Your client has waited long enough. Your Honor, my client has one final request, my lawyer interjected. And what is that? The judge asked, glancing at me. He is recently engaged to Miss Laura Mills and wonders if you would handle the civil ceremony when they marry, my lawyer said. Laura and the girls almost jumped out of their seats with excitement. I smiled, pleased that our plan had worked perfectly. If the judge agreed, my lawyer was to use the funds in the trust to pay the dealership for the car leases, transfer ownership to Laura and the kids, and write me a check for the balance. I would be honored. Congratulations to them both, a test long overdue, the judge said, beaming. Olivia S.'s face on the monitor displayed pure shock. She had probably expected a lighter sentence for contempt, not this outcome. It must have stung even more to learn I was marrying her younger cousin. The judge banged his gavel and said, "Court is adjourned." As we stood to leave, the judge approached to shake my hand. I introduced him to my future wife and daughters, giving him the respect he deserved. He smiled warmly and said, "I am not on the bench now, so just call me Robert. We need to go fly fishing soon, David, before the weather gets too hot." I doubted any man had ever seen 3 more excited girls than mine. They chattered nonstop, a stark contrast to the silence I had grown accustomed to. As we left the courthouse, I noticed a couple quietly exiting. It hit me hard they were my parents. My father had once told me, "Forgiveness is easy, forgetting is not." I was learning just how true that was. Back home, the energy in the house was electric as the girls and Laura began planning the wedding. Laura put her house up for sale, and Amanda settled in well with my team at work, impressing everyone with her quick learning and sharp mind. During her first week, Miranda reconnected with old friends, and Masters Consulting was overwhelmed with 2 new corporate clients needing complete restructuring to survive. Amanda surprised us all by identifying overlooked issues that were costing a client millions in potential sales. In just 3 weeks, she turned it around, resulting in a significant sales increase. One night, as Laura and I cuddled in bed, she adjusted to her new role as a mother while I got used to being a dad again. "You know, dear, my biological clock is ticking. How long do you think we should wait before trying for 1 or 2 of our own?" Laura asked, looking at me with her dreamy eyes. I hadn't considered it before, but after everything she had endured with me, I couldn't refuse her. "As long as you're not showing in our wedding pictures, I'll leave that up to you," I said with a grin. Needless to say, neither of us got much sleep that night. We exchanged vows on Mother S Day. Amanda was the maid of honor, Miranda and another niece were bridesmaids, Chris Aker was my best man, and 2 nephews served as ushers. It was a small affair in our backyard, with the lake as a beautiful backdrop. Laura S. Brothers prepared the yard, and Judge Harris officiated under an arbor of spring flowers. The men wore blue jeans, cowboy hats, and matching boots, while the ladies wore elegant dresses, Laura in a traditional white gown, and the bridesmaids in pastel yellow. Her extended family provided a delightful barbecue spread, and our patio became a dance floor with live music. Life continued, Olivia and Jonathan S. criminal trial began, and Jonathan filed for divorce. My civil lawyer was in discussions with their lawyers and Bank of America S. legal team. As Father S. Day approached, my wife and daughters were clearly planning something special, though I had no idea what. On Father S. Day, Laura and I went fishing at dawn. The fish were biting as soon as the flies hit the water, and in less than an hour we had reached our limit. Just before heading back to shore, Laura handed me a card she had hidden. I opened it to read, "Happy Father's Day, Daddy. We were pregnant, and it is a boy." Overjoyed, I jumped up and accidentally flipped the canoe. We lost everything, the fish, the fishing poles, and our tackle box. We paddled back to shore, soaked but laughing. When the girls found out how I learned the news, they thought it was hilarious. They already knew about Laura's pregnancy. Life has a way of mellowing with time, but some things remain intense. Watching my son being born was one of those moments. He came into the world screaming, weighing 7 pounds. My mother was stunned when I called and asked her to come to the hospital maternity ward as soon as possible. When she arrived, I rushed her into Laura's room, where she was holding our son. "His name is Colin Richard," I said, my voice choked with emotion. My mother broke down, overwhelmed. Colin Richard had been her grandfather's name, a man she adored. As for my father and me, we still don't speak. He would have to make the first move, and as of now, he hasn't. But each morning is a new day, and life goes on.